this next segment, allow me to have a little bit of leeway. There's not a ton of lawn stuff to talk about right now, so I'm just going to introduce something that I thought would be a fun ramble. Sometimes I just ponder things while I'm mowing, because you all know I am still mowing weekly, so sometimes I just ponder things, and a lot of times it's music that makes me ponder things. And so actually, this idea that I'm coming up with here to talk about to you guys going forward, and some of the things I'm going to talk about through it are just things I pondered as I was mowing the lawn. So what I want to introduce here is a mowing playlist concept, and we'll call it Enjoy the Mow playlists. And I'm not sure how you guys can share them with me, because I want you to make up Enjoy the Mow playlists. But if you go to Google Play, because I get all my music through Google Play. I do some through Amazon, but that's only when I play it through. I won't say her name because she'll come on here during my podcast, but most of my music I consume through Google Play. That's where I do all my curation and playlists and radio stations and all that kind of stuff. So if you go to Google Play and you search for Enjoy the Mow V1, Enjoy the Mow V1, you'll find a playlist that I created, Enjoy the Mow V1 Turning Points. Turning Points is just a descriptive kind of, I don't know, album name that I wanted to give it. But it's Enjoy the Mow V1. And what I've done is I've put a bunch of songs in there that I just think go well together. There's no particular reason why. A lot of these have come up to me as I will find different, music and play similar music to it. And sometimes there's music that Google puts together with songs versus songs that you didn't think, you would have never thought to put together that do. So some of that's curated from this. It's my thumbs up as I'm mowing and things like that. I made this playlist, and it's not going to be something that all of you like, but there's a lot of good songs on here. I got One Headlight, The Wallflowers, what a good tune. I Alone by Live. Run Around by Blues Traveler. So you can see it kind of goes up and down a little bit. How about this? Never Let You Go, Third Eye Blind. I know, kind of overplayed in some ways. I got some Gin Blossoms on here, Collective Soul, Little Harvey Danger, Sublime, Everclear, Dishwalla. Of course, some Chili Peppers. I even have a Tracy Chapman song here. Some Black Crowes, Bare Naked Ladies, a little of this, a little of that. And I think these are really good songs to mow to. Now, it's about an hour and 20 minutes. I like the playlist to be about that hour and 20 minutes. I feel like that's about how long most of us spend between mowing, blowing, weed whacking, all of that, and then whatever kind of cleanup you do in the end, sweeping out the garage, maybe clean off your mower. You need about an hour and 20 minutes to enjoy the mow fully for a full service. And so that's what this playlist is. Now, one song that's on here that I wanted to call out is one of my favorites of all time. And this song goes back to 1993 or 4. I remember it from 1994, but I think it actually came out in 1993. It's Mr. Jones by the Counting Crows. Now, that whole entire album, August and Everything After, I think it was called, has just the whole album. It's one of those where you listen to it from the first song to the last, and they just move, and every song works together, and it all tells a story overall. That's why it was such a groundbreaking album. But that song, Mr. Jones, just reminds me, at that time in my life, I was actually in Southern California. I was stationed at March Air Force Base, and that was just kind of interesting because that song represents a turning point in my life. Being a kid from St. Pete, Florida, ending up in Southern California. Essentially, I was in Riverside, Moreno Valley, the Inland Empire. It's a bedroom community of Los Angeles. So it's Southern California and everything that Southern California is and was even back in the 90s. And I can remember I was in public affairs. I worked in the public affairs office. And so we had on multiple TVs all day of all the news stations, just because we were public affairs. We needed to monitor if anything happened or was going on or whatever. Sometimes the news would hear about things that we needed to know as base public affairs, as public relations. Sometimes the news would hear about things before we did, so we always had the news on. And one of the things, we'd had local news, and we'd also have, like the national or the CNNs or C-SPANs, I think. I don't know if even Fox News and those and MSNBC, I don't know if those were around back then, but no, CNN was. But anyway, that would be on all day. And one of the things I remember that was so shocking to me, like a culture shock to me, was that there would be, I don't know how often they were, but it seems like every 2 or 3 weeks, there'd be like this high-speed chase where the helicopters on KTLA were like chasing a car on the freeway as cops chased, like real live Chips. If you guys ever watched Chips when you were a kid, I think that was I watched it in the 80s, but it might have been a 70s show, Ponch and John. It was like real live Chips, and I'd be watching these car chases like, wow, I mean, this stuff never happened in St. Pete, Florida, man. None of that. So I don't know. It was like a culture shock to me. And then I remember also during that time was the infamous O.J. Simpson slow speed Bronco chase. That was also broadcast live. And I watched it as it was broadcast live and couldn't believe it's O.J. Simpson. What? Accused of murder. And I mean, O.J. Simpson, you understand, was Heisman Trophy winner, great sideline reporter. That was juice, man. He was running through airports representing Hertz Rent-A-Car. That he was one of our heroes, and I'm watching this slow speed Bronco chase, and man, that song conjured those things up. By the way, now OJ's on Twitter. That just tells you how far things go. It's just and how things change. That's a lot of years ago. Speaking of that, also having that. I was living in Southern California and those TV shows were on during that time. I watched the entire O.J. Simpson trial live. It was broadcast live and I got to watch it. And I remember learning so much from his dream team of attorneys. Johnny Cochran was the one that most people know. He was just an incredible orator, and he's the one that came up with the "if it doesn't fit, you must acquit," which was just probably one of the best pitches ever in anything. But there was another guy, if you guys remember Barry Scheck. Barry Scheck was a guy that I learned a lot about DNA evidence from. Back then, in that time frame, DNA evidence wasn't near what it is today, and his job was to poke holes in the prosecution's case when it came to the DNA evidence and the way that he questioned the forensic scientists and things. And it was incredible to listen to the way that he used words to get his point across, but not allow ins or out. It was brilliant. And I learned a lot from that. Another thing was there was a man named Kardashian who was the lead defense attorney on that dream team. You guys know the name Kardashian. I don't know much about all that Kardashian stuff as it is today because I don't follow it, and Kanye West's wife and all that. But I do remember Robert Kardashian, the strikingly sharp and just sharp-witted attorney that just had control, and you knew that he was a winner. Just interesting to see. And now what the Kardashians are today. So kind of interesting that song, as I listened to that song while mowing, just kind of brought up all of those things that I pondered, and during those times when I watched that trial and the things I learned from watching, what doesn't matter what you feel about the way it turned out or anything, it was just watching the characters and learning and seeing what you can learn from them and how that can affect you. And I don't know, it must have had a profound effect on my life because I'm mentioning it now. And I think that that's a really cool way that music can speak to you. And while I would rather you listen to this podcast while you're mowing, and I know that a lot of you guys do, I think it'd be cool to have some playlists. So that was my little trip down, amnesia lane there, back to when I lived in Southern California and some of the things that were turning points in my life. And I think that some of that music, I think that a lot of you that listen to that playlist, you're gonna come up with some things too. And I think it's cool to kind of ponder on that. So check out that playlist. And then I'm not sure how we can share this in the future, but what I want to do is each week when we do a podcast, I'll have a playlist. By the way, if you're not on YouTube, I'll link it in the YouTube video description. If you're not on YouTube though, but you're on a regular email list, I'll send out an email later this week, kind of updating you guys again, and I'll put this link to this playlist in that email too. So if you're on the regular email list, I'm not going to start the weekly emails up weekly yet, but I'll send one out next week, talking a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We'll talk some shop, we'll kind of talk about some things, and some things that'll be relevant to this podcast. I'll kind of do a follow-up email on that, and I'll also put in this playlist. But I was thinking about how could you guys share these with me? I think Twitter's a good place to do it. By the way, if you're not on Twitter, I'm on Twitter. Just search the Lawn Care Nut on there. I'm actually Alan Paul, at Alan Paul, ALLYNPAUL on Twitter. I have a lot of fun on Twitter. There's a handful of guys and girls on there that we go back and forth, and it's fun because it's only 140 characters. So you have to, when people ask questions or whatever, it's quick, boom, 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 and it's easy to, I don't know, I like the cadence of Twitter. I like to communicate there. I can also be funny and can send GIFs and stuff, which I enjoy doing. However, if you want to submit something for an Enjoy the Mow podcast, for an Enjoy the Mow playlist, make your playlist at least an hour and 20 minutes long. and then maybe give it a description, tell me a little bit about it, tweet it to me somehow. Now, I think Spotify would probably work. It needs to be something that can be accessible. I don't even know if these that I made here are accessible to people that don't have Google Play Music. I'm not sure about that, but somebody in the audience will make one that'll be public and we'll share it. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, but tweet me your playlist. Tweet that to me on Twitter, and I'll see about making that a weekly thing. I think that'd be a really cool feature every week that one of you gets to supply the Enjoy the Mow playlist for that week. And again, we'll put it in our emails, and it'll just be a fun thing. And I really look forward to seeing and discovering different music, because one of the things that I really do love about the way that people curate music now, I grew up on records and then tapes. I mean, most of my life was cassette tapes and then CDs. And of course, now the way we curate music is just all online in the cloud. But I actually like that, because what I like to do is I'll find a song I like and then I'll put on radio, which typically will give you similar songs, and sometimes you'll get one that's way off, and then I'll take and make that one radio, and I'll go there, and I'll come off into a whole new genre of music. It's kind of how I discovered Gold Room and M83, and I don't even know if those two are related, but that's two I can think of. That's the other thing, though, when you do discover music through that radio feature, you don't always learn the names of the artists. You just learn the songs and you put them in playlists, and you never actually see the name of the artist, which is why I can't remember Two-Door Cinema Club or whoever they are, or that genre of music. But long and the short of it is, I look forward to discovering new music from you guys too.